Hello, crafty friends. Welcome. I have a trio of cards that I'm going to be creating for you in today's video using Simon Says Stamps November card kit. This kit is called Full of Thanks, and I picked this one up because I adored the stamp set, and of course all of the extra goodies are a lot of fun. Let me show you what's in the kit. It looks like the kit is still available at the time that I'm releasing this video, but of course you can buy all of these products separately if you want, and I'll have all of the links in the description box. So I showed you the cute zipper pouch already. I just love that they come with pouches these days. Then it comes with some very, very low-tech tape, some nice scissors. I was excited to try those out. And here's a $5 off coupon code. You get 2 envelopes. Here's the first one. This is an A2 sized envelope, and I'll show you the slimline envelope in just a minute. It comes with some adhesive transfer, and you get 2 sheets of these beautiful leaves, as well as some deco foil in the colors orange and bronze. And then this stencil was fabulous. It goes along with the stamp. It makes coloring in your images very quick and easy. And then here is the gorgeous stamp. This one's also called Full of Thanks, and it's a 6x8 clear stamp. I just love those large images and then the sentiments. And then here is the slimline envelope. You get an example page full of beautiful inspiration, and it also tells you what's included in the kit, and then some cardstock. And these are such gorgeous, bright colors for your fall time card crafting. So let's get started with card number 1. I'm going to stamp out this image onto a piece of alabaster cardstock. I already die cut it with my fluted edge rectangle die. And I'm going to stamp it with my favorite brown ink. It's called VersaFine Clair Fallen Leaves, and it's a nice, dark, rich brown ink. I use this a lot in the fall time. And here it is all ready to go. I'm going to use the stencil to color this in, and some of my inks from my stash. This first one is called Game Over from Simon Hurley. And I'm not taking the ink all the way to the tips of these leaves. I'm just trying to get the base of them, just to allow some of the cardstock to show through, and it adds a touch of dimension this way as well. But it looks so beautiful and airbrushed once you peel up the stencil. Next, I'll bring in some orange, and this one is called Mandarin, and it's one of Simon Says Stamps' positively saturated inks. I love their inks. And again, I'm just bringing the darkest color to the bottom of the pumpkin. Next, we'll add a little bit of brown ink. This is called Gur from Simon Hurley. And then some green ink called Later Gator for the green apple. So there's a stencil for each stamp, and I didn't realize this at the beginning, but I do catch on my second card. So there's 3 different sections on each stencil. They're very easy to line up, and you just kind of work your way down the stencil, and then all of your images will be colored in. But of course, I'm just kind of flip-flopping around all of the stencils on this first card. But it does turn out just stunning. So let's color in the last leaves here, and then I can show you what this looks like. I'm going to put this back in my Mini Misty so I can stamp out my sentiment, which is going to say Happy Thanksgiving. I'm kind of tucking it next to the pumpkin arrangement. I'll glue this onto a white card base. For a pop of sparkle, I'm going to add some smooth gold discs around the sentiment. I'm just going to put 3 of these around it. These are from Spellbinders. I really like the look of gold on this card. And here is a close-up look at the finished card. The images kind of look like they've been airbrushed because they're so smooth. You can make up some really fast cards with these stencils. On card number 2, I'm going to stamp my images onto a piece of craft cardstock. I'll use this kind of U-shaped stamp And I'm going to stamp it with more of the chocolate brown ink, and then I'm going to flip it in my Mini Misty and stamp it again. And it's just going to line up perfectly to make a little border around the edges of this panel. And I do stamp it more than once just to get a nice dark impression. I'm going to go ahead and stamp out the sentiment while I have everything out. And this just says, "Thanks for everything," and then I'm going to stamp out a flower underneath it. And of course, I'm going to use the stencil again over this panel. So I'm going to allow it to dry just a little bit before I get into my stenciling. And then I'm pulling out some Distress Oxide inks this time. And so I'm starting at the top of the stencil, and you can see how you can color in a bunch of images at once. These leaves are going to be pink. Then I'll flip it, and while I have ink on this portion of the stencil, I'll go ahead and do the flip side. Now you go to the middle part of your stencil and color in more of the images. So it's really easy to do. You just start at the top of the stencil and work your way down. This time I wanted a teal pumpkin. And then of course I'll flip it and do the other side. And then I'll clean off my stencil in between and then move on to the bottom portion of the stencil. I'll color in the squash and these little berries. And I forgot to ink in the stem of the pumpkin and the stem on these gourds. So I'm just putting that back down and using a little bit of green to color those in. And then here it is all done. There isn't a stencil, unfortunately, for the single images like that sunflower. So I pulled out some colored pencils to color that in. I use a piece of the really bright yellow cardstock to mat this panel. And it's just going to be a very thin matting. And then I can put it onto another white card base, just using more of the dot liner. I pulled out some more sequins from Spellbinders. These are some teal sequins. And when I say sequins, I mean confetti pieces. These don't have holes in the middle. But I thought the teal would bring out the teal pumpkins very nicely. And I'll just glue 3 of these on this panel. And this was another very fast and easy card to put together. I usually pop the panel back in my Misty to sharpen up the lines that the ink has dulled, but I kind of liked the way it looked this time, so I wasn't too worried about re-stamping the images. On card number 3, I'll use the 3rd stamp from this set. And this time I'm stamping it up with some Simon Says Stamp Intense black ink. I do stamp it up several times to get the image nice and dark. But again, I'm going to use the stencil, but I'm also going to use a few Copic markers at the end, so I wanted some Copic-friendly ink. I stamped it onto a white panel, and I'm just going to start working my way across the stencil and adding color to the image. I'm using some positively saturated inks this time. And again, I'm not taking the ink all the way to the tips of these images, just to add some dimension, just to put the darkest colors at the base of the images. I was planning on coloring in some of these stamped images with Copic markers or colored pencils, but I was having so much fun with these stencils that that's all I wanted to use for this video. And now for the leaves, I'm going to protect it with some of the low tack tape, just to protect some of the images so I don't get ink where I don't want it to be. And the tape is very low tack tape. It's nice, but I'm not used to tape this low tack. I'm going to have to play with it more to see if I really like it. Now I can color in the sunflower, and I'm being careful not to go over the brown of the center of the sunflower. I just want the yellow on the petals, of course. I'll use some red ink to color in the berries. I'll make them good and dark. And now I can peel off the stencil and show you what this looks like. I'm going to put this panel back in the Mini Misty so I can stamp out my sentiment. I'm going to cut this one in half. It just says thank you. It doesn't ruin the stamp at all, but I just wanted to make it fit within the confines of this stamped image. To line it up straight, I'm going to use this grid transparency. This is from Simon Says Stamp, and I use this quite often just to get my stamped sentiments straight. Then I'll use more of the black ink to stamp this out. And of course, I do stamp it out more than once, but I only show one stamping. Now I can put down the U. Once that's placed, I'll pick it up with the door of the Mini Misty. And then I can stamp that under the thank. Now I can pull it out of the Mini Misty and start in on some Copic coloring. I wanted to do the frame so it looked kind of gold. I'm using some dark yellows at the bottom of the frame. And then as I work my way up, I'm going to use lighter yellows. And this will give it kind of a gold look. So next I'll pull out a really pale yellow and go all the way around the corner of this frame. And then the dark yellow that I used just wasn't dark enough, so I'm going to pull out an even darker yellow just to go up the sides again to add more dimension to this frame. And it'll just blend in with the light yellow beautifully. And I'll draw this out a little bit more with the medium yellow. I could have even gone a little bit darker, even with like a brown at the very bottoms of the frame. But I'm going to move on to adding a little bit of color around the leaves and the flower using a B00. This just adds a touch of color inside the frame. I think it looks really pretty. Okay, so this panel is all ready to go. I am going to fussy cut this out with the scissors that came in the kit. And the scissors are really nice and sharp. I like those. I popped up the images with some foam pieces. And I'm going to center it on this beautiful piece of dark purple cardstock. I'll add some purple pearls. These are from Spellbinders and they're called Lilac. I'm using my all-in-one tool to peel these off the backing and to place them around this panel. I'm going to place about 5 of these down on this card. These pearls are very subtle on this card, but I just love how it adds to the simplicity of this one. And that's all I'm going to add to this card. And here is a close-up look. Well, thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this video today and were inspired. And happy Thanksgiving to all of my American friends. I hope you get the chance to sit down and do something crafting in between all of the eating and celebrating. I'll be back really soon with more card crafting inspiration. Take care. Bye.